Picture the senior solicitor who has spent 20 years building a reputation for tight, well-reasoned advice memos. Every junior who comes through her firm produces drafts that need the same red ink, the same comments. Be more specific. Cite the authority. The conclusion is buried. The structure is wrong. Multiply that by every junior, every draft, every year. The cost of all that markup isn't the time she spends doing it. It's the work she can't do because she's doing it. The strategic matters that wait. The new clients she can't take on. The associate development that gets squeezed because there's only so much of her judgment to go around. This episode shows how to build a Claude evaluator that reads junior drafts the way she would. Not to replace her eye, to free it for the work only she can do. The cost isn't the markup. Every junior who comes through the firm produces drafts that need the same red ink. Be more specific. Cite the authority. The conclusion is buried. The structure is wrong. If you've supervised juniors for any length of time, you have a list of comments you've written hundreds of times. You'll write it hundreds more. The hours add up. But that's not the actual cost. The actual cost is everything you didn't do because you were doing the markup. The cost is the work that needs your judgment that doesn't get your judgment, because your judgment is busy on the work it's already given you. This is the senior practitioner bottleneck, not output, not skill. The volume of judgment you can apply to other people's work, and it's the bottleneck this methodology dissolves. The traditional solution is the drafting manual, the style guide, the internal precedent library. Every firm has them. Almost none of them work the way they were supposed to. It's not because the principles are wrong. The principles are usually fine. The problem is that the actual judgment is in the application of the principles to a specific draft, not in the principles themselves. You can write, "Use clear language," and your junior will hand you a sentence that uses every word correctly and says nothing. You can write, "Cite authority for every proposition," and the junior will append a list of authorities at the end of the paragraph as if dropping them in a basket counted as citing them. The principle is right. The application is what's wrong. What you need isn't another guide. It's a way to externalize the part of your judgment that can't go in a guide. The part that lives in your head, that you exercise without naming, that took 20 years to develop. That's the part this methodology captures. Before we go further, the methodology is Hilary Gridley's. Hilary is head of core product at Whoop, the wearable fitness and recovery company. She built it for managers scaling their judgment across product teams. The 5-step approach below is hers, in her language, with her structure. What we're going to do is walk through her method as she described it, then translate it for legal work, specifically for advice memo review. The translation is straightforward. The methodology is general purpose. What changes is the example you build it around. She's been doing this for over a year. She has, in her own words, built around 1 billion of these. Her source episode is on a podcast called How I AI, hosted by Claire Vaux from May 2025. The link is in the description. She's worth listening to in full. 5 steps to reverse engineer your own judgment. Step 1. Collect 3 or 4 pairs of work, the same memo before and after your edits. 2 columns, junior version on the left, your final version on the right. Anonymized, saved as one document. Step 2. Reverse engineer. Upload the document and ask Claude to articulate the principles you're applying. Don't tell Claude what the principles are. Let Claude discover them from the contrast in the examples. Step 3. Refine. This is the move most people miss. You don't accept Claude's first list. You run a magic prompt. Be 100 times more specific. You run it repeatedly. You push until Claude is producing sentences a partner would actually say. Step 4. Have Claude write the system prompt itself. You don't write it. You tell Claude that you're building an evaluator. You describe what it should do, and you ask Claude to draft the prompt for the project. Step 5. Test and deploy. You drop the prompt into a Claude project. You test it on the sample memo. You share it with your team. They start uploading their drafts to the project before sending them to you. You see only what survives. Now the legal translation. We're building the advice memo evaluator. Step 1 in detail. Find 3 or 4 advice memos. Pick examples where your edits substantially changed the work. Junior version on one side, your marked up final on the other. Anonymize everything. Client names, matter references, anything specific. The contrast between the 2 columns is the point. That's what Claude reads. Step 2 in detail. Upload the pairs to a Claude project, then run the prompt. Here are pairs of legal advice memos. The left column is a draft. The right column is the version after I have edited it to my standards. Help me articulate the principles I am applying. Claude returns a list. Predictable items at first. Structure, the location of the conclusion, the use of authority, plain language, the framing of the issue, the handling of risk and qualification. Useful but generic. Anyone could have written this list. This is where most people stop. The list looks fine. The principles are technically correct. They write them up as a one-page guide for the team and feel like they've done something. They haven't. What they have is the same drafting manual every firm has. The principles aren't where the judgment lives. This is the move. You don't accept the first list. You run the magic prompt. Be 100 times more specific. Run it once, run it again. Tell Claude which points matter more. Ask Claude what it's missing. Push until you're getting sentences that aren't in any drafting manual you've ever read. Sentences a partner would actually say to a junior in a corridor after marking up a draft. Conclusions appear in the 2nd paragraph, not the 7th, unless the analysis is genuinely contested. Authorities are cited with the proposition they support, not appended at the end as an unexplained list. Risk distinguishes commercial from legal, never collapsed into one paragraph. The framing of the issue takes 1 sentence, not 3. The recommendation is a recommendation, not a description of options. These are the sentences. You'll know you're there when you look at the rubric and recognize yourself. When you read it back and think, yes, that is what I do. I just never said it like that before. That's the rubric. Save it. Step 4. You're going to ask Claude to write the system prompt for the project itself. This sounds odd the first time. You've spent the last hour articulating your standards, and now you're handing the prompt writing back to Claude. The reason is simple. Claude is genuinely better at writing prompts that other instances of Claude will follow well. Your job was the rubric. The rubric is the hard part. The prompt writing is mechanical. The prompt to give Claude looks like this. My job is to create a Claude project that evaluates advice memos written by my team against the criteria we just developed. It needs to explain each criterion, why it matters, and give specific feedback on how to improve. Your job is to write the system prompt for that project. Claude generates the prompt. You read it. You may want to tweak the tone. You may want to add a constraint, like respond in plain English without legalese, or flag where you are uncertain rather than guessing. Then you copy it into a new Claude project. You name the project something memorable. The memo doctor, the advice reviewer, whatever you like. Step 5. Test and deploy. Test it first. Take a memo you marked up recently and upload it to the project. Read what comes back. Does it find the things you found? Does it miss things you wouldn't miss? Tweak the rubric if it's underperforming. Add criteria the testing reveals were missing. Once it works, share the project with your team. The instruction is simple. Before you send a draft to the supervising solicitor, run it through the project. Read the feedback. Fix the obvious issues. Then send what's left. What this changes for you is enormous. The drafts that land on your desk are pre-read against your own standards. The structural issues are mostly fixed. The conclusions are mostly in the right paragraph. The authority citations are mostly properly anchored. You're reviewing drafts that have already been pressure tested against the rubric you would have applied yourself. The same red ink, 10 times faster. What it changes for the junior is bigger. They get feedback in seconds, not days. They learn the standards by encountering them on their own work, not by reading them in a manual. They develop faster. 3 caveats, none optional. Confidentiality first. Do not upload client work to a public AI tool without proper safeguards. Use enterprise tier accounts with no training settings. Anonymize example pairs before they go anywhere. If your firm hasn't worked out its AI policy, this is the moment to. The uploads survive longer than you think. Supervision second. The evaluator is a pre-review tool. It is not a replacement for the supervising solicitor's review. The supervising solicitor still signs off. The evaluator catches the structural issues so you can spend your time on the substantive ones. It does not catch the substantive ones for you. Make this clear to the team. Don't let the evaluator become an excuse to skip your eye. Hallucination third. The risk profile here is materially lower than the use cases we covered in the hallucination files. Claude isn't generating new authority. It's evaluating the structure and writing quality of existing work. The failure modes are different. They're not zero, but they're not the same kind of risk as fabricating a citation in a court filing. Different tool, different use, different risk. Run the verification protocol on legal research. Run a lighter touch on this. One more thing before we close. The evaluator is the side effect. The exercise of building it, of sitting with your own work, of articulating why a sentence is wrong, of naming the principles you've internalized over decades, that's the practice. You'll come out of it with a more articulated version of your own standards than you had before. You'll be a better trainer of juniors. You'll be a better drafter yourself because you'll be more aware of what you're doing when you draft. You'll be a better explainer of why a thing is wrong, which makes the feedback you give faster and more useful. The evaluator is just the artifact. The articulation is the value. Coming next, stop letting Claude validate your draft. The same kind of methodology applied to your own writing, not your team's. How to use Claude as an honest critic instead of a flattering assistant. Subscribe so you don't miss it. That's the episode. See you in the next one.